want to talk about economic planning, which has been one of our nemesis probably since FDR. Even before that, there was economic planning. There's always, if you're in government, you feel obligated. I have to plan things. I have to be important. They never say, I'm in office now, how I want to make the country freer. No, they have to set a record for themselves, so they have to plan. And but it's been notorious since the Depression. Each administration, there's more and more planning, more and more spending, more and more debt. Planning isn't working out so well. So, when is too much planning too much? And when is it coming? And people so often ask me, yeah, I agree with you. This thing is going to end, but tell me exactly when that's going to end. We'll talk a little bit about that. But the whole thing is the economic planning has just really exploded and deteriorated in this last year and a half, ever since COVID. But some people think, COVID, there was a pandemic and they had to react, and that was a natural, normal consequences. Others, like myself, I think there was a little bit of conniving involved. Not that they invented for the purpose of doing this, but there was an opportunity. Don't let this opportunity go to waste. So when there was something to blame for some problems and an excuse to move things along, we're not supposed to ever waste an emergency. And if you don't have an emergency, make it an emergency. And there was a little bit of activity going on in Washington with the politicians to stir up a lot of fear and interest. So the planners really got busy, and the markets got a little bit nervous. So what do the politicians do? Well, they're nervous. It's going down, and what's going to happen? So the Fed was readily available. Not that there was reason to be cautious, because the Fed was already in some problems even before the pandemic, and they had been spending too much, and there was a downturn, and they were dealing with the stock market. So it was there. And once this went down, though, the Fed came flying in, and they didn't just produce a couple $1 billion. They got into the trillions of dollars for the first time. They talk about $1 trillion like it's nothing, and they've continued to do it. But it's caused a lot of distortions. The distortions were there. The economic planning, the philosophy that Republicans and Democrats follow, that's been there. The protection of true liberty has not been there. So it was pretty messy. But it was especially weak at the beginning of this pandemic. But it would be my assumption, Chris, that things have gotten a lot worse. I mean, if you happen to believe that government was too big and should be smaller, we should be spending less and we shouldn't be monetizing all this debt, we're not winning that argument. So in this last year and a half, we've had all kinds of examples of economic planning, which we shouldn't call it economic planning. It's not planning unless a disaster is worthwhile. Whatever they're doing, they're ending up with more of a disaster. So the pretense at planning and making things better, that doesn't exist. They make an effort at plan for political reasons, and they make things a lot worse, and we will be forced to deal with it.
Dr. Paul, central planning has always failed. It fails today, and it will always fail in the future. So why does this keep happening? Well, each generation has to learn anew. You don't come into this world understanding why central planning always fails, and the central planners will never tell you why they're always going to fail. And it's because they believe that they can make dictates, and everything will go on as usual except for the dictate. Everything will just adapt around their dictate. And it's just not true. When they make their dictates, everything changes. And it's impossible to know all the subsequent changes that are going to happen. It's impossible to know how every individual in their mind will react in their own unique, localized situation. So when government intervenes, I may react one way, Dr. Paul may react another, my neighbor another way, and it all happens on the spot. I mean, we don't even know ourselves how we're going. We can plan. We say, okay, if the government, I'm going to. But when it actually happens in that moment, we may decide to do so. It's impossible to centrally plan the country, the world, the universe, whatever they dream up in their mind. But they still do it. And what they do, as Dr. Paul mentioned, is they just multiply problems, pile them on, one after another, up until the point where the people have had enough and they want.
Economic planning is supposed to, eliminate the chaos. Yet what we're saying is economic planning is the cause of the chaos, because things don't work out as the politicians think.
Before we continue, help us by smashing that YouTube like button and subscribe now to this channel. This shows the algorithm that you value the information, and it helps us spread this message. Sharing is caring. Please like and subscribe now. Thank you. And now, let's continue.
You know, in a free market, there's a job for the businessman and even the worker to anticipate what the future is going to bring, because they have to make decisions, especially the entrepreneur who has to borrow money and make plans and anticipate what the desires are going to be of the consumers. And if they anticipate right and run a good business, they make money. And they can participate in the capitalist system by earning more money than they need just for maintenance of their livelihood. They have to make enough that there's extra, which becomes the capital for expanding their business or loaning the money to somebody else to expand the business. And they have to know something in the free market. They have to say, well, one of the major costs and good information that we get on what we should do are the interest rates. You know, if there's not much capital out there, interest rates will change, and they will go up, and the savings are low, and this will cause the savers to do different things. But the person who's getting ready to invest and anticipate the marketplace, they have to make a decision. Today that doesn't exist because we don't have a market psychology. The main thing that the individuals, everybody now has to anticipate is they hold pins and needles, especially on the week when the Fed is meeting. What did the Federal Reserve Board Chairman say? What were the words he used? Oh, let's look at the report this week, and 6 weeks ago he said this. He changed 2 words, and then they wait and they have a press conference offer. They believe these words, and the words do have an effect because that's what everybody looks at. And yet it's all false illusions. It's all fake. It isn't trying to make a decision about something happened in the market. It's trying to figure out what the bureaucrats are going to do and what the politicians are going to do, what the Federal Reserve is going to do. And guess what? You've already said it. Things get worse. They don't get better. And just look at what's happened in this past year. Well, we can't let the system fall apart, which it was on the verge of doing. We have to get the helicopters going, get helicopters and pass the money out. And believe me, it was like helicopters. I mean, the money just dropped down on every family. But most of that money is getting spent now, and things are changing, but there's no true growth, no true investments that go on. So the management doesn't work because even the managers of an economy, they have no idea what the results are going to be. If you pass out a lot of money, you don't know what the consumer is going to do with the money. He might pay debt, he might buy a car, he might buy a house, who knows what he's going to do. So you cannot anticipate what's happening. So the Keynesians, who have all these formulas, and they're very, very complex, they figure it out, and they're trying to say, well, with arithmetic and calculations, we can tell what the economy is going to do in 6 months. They don't know whether or not the whole system is going to fall apart within the next 6 weeks, which it could. But that's the one big difference between free market economics and government planning, is the free market planners, the free market people have an understanding that there's a subjective element. What the people think and what they want to do makes a big difference on how they spend their money. And right now, they're getting some weird signals. For instance, I think one of the weirdest things under today's conditions has been this thing that the government passed out a lot of money, and they to the point where unemployment and welfare checks and the special bonuses from the government that was so great, they created an incentive for people not to work. Wow, that's a pretty neat deal. And now there's a high demand for labor. and they tend to enjoy that, but that can't last. That's artificial, and it also means that where's the money going to go? And if it's not going into productive investment, it's going to go into higher prices. That's the one thing that's going to happen, and you can be certain of, even though we don't know how much and when and what the conclusion will be. But if you pour out the money and monetize debt to the tune that they're doing now, it's going to lead to the ordinary inflation, which is the prices of goods and services that people need to take care of their lives on a daily basis.
What to do in such a situation? Inform yourself and keep your financial education strong. We from the Compact Group offer our loyal subscribers a free educational portal with first-hand monetary, financial, and economic knowledge. Enter our invite-only Insider Club by clicking the link below. You will get access to first-class information far earlier than the rest. We have prepared a special deal for all our members where you can access a giant pool of Robert Kiyosaki's financial wisdom for just $1. To find out more, simply click the link below and join our Insider Club absolutely free. But there is more you can and should do. Build up several streams of income. More and more people realize that they have to take their future in their own hands, but they don't know how and where to start. We from Compact offer our Insider Club members unique opportunities. Strengthen your financial muscle and get the edge. Click the link below. Become part of our free Insider Club. No financial obligations. But there's one important thing you have to know. You have to become active. So do it now. Become active and see you on the other side.